So just the other week, I covered part 1 of I Want to Love Linux, It Doesn't Love Me Back, a series on the serious accessibility problems that exist on Linux and have existed for a long time and are being worked on, but do still exist on the Wayland side as well. Now, at the time it was already released, but I didn't cover it then. There is a part 2. I Want to Love Linux, It Doesn't Love Me Back, Post 2. The audio stack is a crime scene. Now, just as a reminder, the author of this series is fully reliant on a screen reader. When there is no audio, there is no reading. Now, there are techniques they can use, like OCRing things with a phone and things like that, but that's additional things outside the system to work around the problem. When there is no audio, the system is basically unusable. You can't hear anything, and it's not your fault. You plug in headphones, nothing. You unplug them again, nothing. The speakers are muted, the system says they aren't. You check volumes, you restart Pulse, you restart Pipewire, you restart your whole damn session, and still no sound. This is just a Tuesday in Linux audio. Even better, you unplug the audio device, you replug it, and now the audio system doesn't think the device exists. Why does it not think the device exists? I don't know. You unplug it again, you replug it. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Something will happen. Sometimes the device shows up and just won't play anything. Sometimes it does, but stutters constantly like it's falling on a cassette tape. Sometimes laptop speakers never work at all unless you run a 6-line HDA verb incantation copied from a 9-year-old mailing list post. Sometimes the system boots up with everything at 0% volume. Why? Because Pulseaudio once had a patch to mute sound on boot. Then someone reverted the patch because it was breaking things. Then someone reapplied it. Then they reverted it. Then someone added a workaround that cancels the revert of the unmute of the mute. This is real. This is production. This is Linux audio. So when I had them on the podcast, which will be out in a couple of weeks, the way they explained the problem to me is basically when the system boots up, sometimes there'll be like a crackly sound sent through the speakers, which is done because there's some garbled data being sent through the audio channel. So to get rid of the crackling, the solution was just mute the audio. The problem with that is if you rely on a screen reader and the audio was muted and not unmuted, now you have no screen reader. Now, audio on Linux started simple, and simple isn't always a good thing. This starts off by talking about ULSA, the kernel-level driver. Now, ULSA wasn't the first way of doing audio on Linux. It actually replaced an older system called OSS, Open Sound System, back in the early 2000s. And then, very shortly after that, in the early 2000s, people realized ULSA wasn't enough. It couldn't mix audio from multiple sources, it couldn't route sound across apps, it was raw, low level, and unforgiving. From there, we got the wonderful, the amazing Pulseaudio. And Pulseaudio, even though we're moving past it today, its claws are still directly grabbing onto the future. It was supposed to be the layer on top of ULSA, handling device routing, per-app volume control, hot plug support, etc. Except it was buggy and laggy and didn't always work, but everything depended on it. It is still quite laggy today. The bugginess mostly ironed out. A lot of the bugginess with Pulseaudio is based on distros shipping it too early and shipping it with broken configs. Once we got towards the end of the Pulseaudio life, like where we are today in the migration over to the new solution, it's mostly fine. And that new solution is Pipewire alongside Wireplumber. There is another thing called Pipewire Media Session, but no one uses it. It's the reference implementation. Basically what Wireplumber does is Pipewire by itself doesn't do automatic routing. So audio will play, and that audio won't be sent to a device. Like, it'll just play in the ether. Wireplumber will go and take the audio and then route it over to your output device. There are ways you can go and manually change things, but a lot of the time you just want things to be automatic and go to the default device. And Pipewire finally gives us a modern, low-latency, graph-based audio and video system. So Pipewire originally was called Pulse Video. It was going to be the video component of the Pulse stack. And then the scope expanded, and then it had Pulseaudio emulation, and it had a full audio system and jack emulation, and it kind of expanded to be a bit of everything. It has Bluetooth profiles, handle device routing, solid policy control, and is configurable. It fixes real problems that Pulseaudio never could. The problem, though, is Pulseaudio, no matter what we do, is still the audio system on Linux. So most applications don't directly talk to Pipewire, they talk to Pipewire Pulse, which is the Pulseaudio emulation inside of Pipewire. So they're still basing it around the way things were done 15 years ago. And for blind users, this matters because even with Pipewire working beautifully, we still hit problems like device indexes aren't simply numbers anymore, they're long UUID-like IDs, which makes scripting harder. Audio is still tied to your user session. That means root can't speak just like with Pulse. There are ways to do it, it can be done, the author knows there are ways to do it, that was explained in the prior post, but it doesn't just work. You need to do some workarounds to make sure it does. Tools like eSpeakUp or Fenrir still require config hacks to forward audio from root to your user via Wireplumber. That right there. So yes, Pipewire is a massive improvement, but the legacy Pulse model still shapes how software behaves, and the new stack inherits the same fundamental issue. Your sound only works if your user session works, and that's the exact point where blind users often lose access. And even beyond that, you still need Pulse for legacy apps, you still need also for direct hardware access, and you still need Jack for pro audio tools that never moved on. Basically, all pro audio on Linux is Jack. Is it ever going to move to something like Pipewire? Look, Jack is honestly the thing that no one really complains about because very few people actually use it, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's kind of it. And with Pipewire Jack, you can route stuff easily through a graph-based editor, so it's not a major issue. The main issue with the graph-based editors is both QPW Graph and Helvum are not really accessible. So if somebody could make a keyboard-based, graph-based editor, that could be cool, where it very clearly indicates the node you're on. I think that could work pretty well. I don't know, maybe if I get bored, I'll work on it myself. Debugging Hell Audio Edition. When audio breaks on Linux, it doesn't crash. It doesn't throw a friendly dialogue. It doesn't log anything useful. Even if you can't, hear the friendly dialogue, at least you can OCR it. You just don't get sound. You start running some commands to see what is going on. Maybe you see a device, maybe not. Maybe it shows up as dummy output. Oh god, there's so many times I've seen this. Sometimes just reloading Pipewire will fix it. Just doing like a systemctl -- user restart Pipewire. Sometimes it'll fix it. Other times it doesn't, and I reboot it and it just keeps being dead. Why? I don't know, because I certainly didn't modify any of my configs, right? Any like weird plugins, nothing like that. It just doesn't. Now, a lot of the time what I do is just reboot my system then, and a lot of the time that will fix it. But even better, maybe it shows up as working, but doesn't actually work, which I've seen as well. If you're lucky, Pavu Control shows the wrong profile and you can fix it. If you're unlucky, there's no fix, or the fix doesn't persist, or the profile isn't even listed. Sometimes Pipewire crashes and restarts. Sometimes it doesn't. It was actually really bad with early Pipewire video. There were a lot of cases where the portal could just take down your entire Pipewire session and all your audio with it, and that was great. Sometimes Pulse is still running and you didn't notice. Sometimes 2 instances of Pipewire running because of a race between your display manager and your session manager. And this is why I don't actually use a display manager. I just launch KDE by just running Plasma. What is it? I don't remember the command. Yeah, start Plasma -Wayland. That's every time I want to do it, I just Control R it, so I don't actually remember the command. Sometimes Bluetooth doesn't work unless you restart the service in exactly the right order with a magic dbus incantation. Sometimes your speakers disappear when you unplug headphones. Sometimes they come back muted. Sometimes you unmute them and they still don't play because Pulse remembered a per port volume of 0 from 3 years ago. This is just normal desktop audio. Firmware, UCM, and the dark corners. Let's talk laptops. Not desktops, not audio interfaces, laptops, because here you get firmware bugs and undocumented quirks. Your speakers might not work unless you boot with SND HDA Intel.model equals laptop or Dell-headset multi, or maybe auto, or maybe that breaks your microphone. You'll find a forum post that says, add a sound RC file with these 3 lines, and maybe that works. Or maybe it breaks every other audio device. Then there's UCM, the use case manager. What is the use case? Not documented, not stable, not complete. It's how Pulse and Pipewire talk to ULSA, and how ULSA talks to your actual hardware pins. If the UCM file is wrong, the device might show up with just no outputs. Your headphones might get routed to the mic jack. Your speaker might be marked available, but play nothing. And fixing this means digging through a file that has barely any documentation in a half-broken config language, and hopefully it works. And, if it doesn't, well, good luck. Enjoy. Now, for someone who can see, all of this is obviously annoying. But at the same time, if your sound is broken, you can use your PC, you can go on the internet, you can work out how to fix a problem. It's not really that big of a deal for you. It's inconvenient, and it's annoying, and you don't want to have to deal with it. But for blind users, no sound, no output, no feedback. You're just locked out. You can't tell if your system is properly booted. You can't tell if you're at a login prompt. You can't even tell if your system is still... I disagree with this one. You can put your feet near your PC, or you can still hear. If you can hear, which you need to be able to hear the sound, you can probably hear your fans. So put your head near your PC. You can work that one out. I will not give you that one. You might be in a broken session. You might be in a panic state. You might just have no output, and you have no way of knowing. This isn't inconvenience, it's exclusion. And the worst part, sometimes the sound comes back, and you never find out why it broke in the first place. This is why I like to do my system reboots, and just don't think about it, because nothing logs it, nothing warns you, nothing explains it, and it just starts working again. Until it doesn't. Now, I did see some people in the previous video saying, oh, well, why doesn't this person just fix the problems themselves if they care so much about it? Firstly, the whole thing we talked about with the whole not being able to hear the computer, you can't fix things, but let's just say they're in a case where they can't hear everything and things are currently working. This person is a developer and does actually work on these problems themselves. And like they have projects, they've written drivers on Windows for doing things. Like they're not just someone who's just complaining for the sake of it. Like this is someone who's been using Linux for, I think he said 16 years? And like has been working through these problems for quite a while now. When the UI doesn't talk and the CLI barely listens, let's say you want to adjust volume. You do what any normal person would do, you open a graphical mixer, except most graphical mixers on Linux don't label their sliders correctly. One of the things I heard is it's common to see button, slider, and that's what you get. And don't expose device names properly, are built on toolkits with broken AT-SPI support, and don't announce focus or selection at all. If you're blind, you're just guessing which slider is which, or might say slider or application, or nothing at all. One thing I did also hear is with, I think it was with the old Fedora installer, it didn't label things correctly. So one of the things they did to get through the installer is randomly click with their mouse until they found the next button, and that was kind of the approach that just mostly worked. So you fall back to the terminal, except now your desktop is gone, audio's gone, so you SSH in, or plug in a serial console, or switch to another TTY if your distro even configures that properly. Now what? You try listing out the syncs, and then setting the volume with this command. This is basically the command that I use for actually like raising and lowering my volume. I've got it set on my like audio scroll wheel here, and most of the time it's been pretty good for me. I haven't run into any issues. Okay. I have run into issues where Pipewire has started like stalling, and it wouldn't respond to any event. So it's not entirely fair to say that I haven't seen it, but mostly haven't seen it. Or you could use PackMD, except PackMD is undocumented, unforgiving, and interactive. You can't use it easily over serial, you can't script it, you have to memorize hex values for volume, and sync indexes that change every boot. and PACTL is only slightly better. Want to move all audio streams to a new device? You can run a command like this. You have to parse the PACTL list, grep the card names, match up your device IDs, and hope the syntax hasn't changed. All without sound, all without feedback, and all without any guarantee that it'll work. And all this because the nice graphical mixer either didn't expose the volume control to Orca, or it just crashed, and you don't have audio anyway for it to connect to. Then there is everyone's favorite, the Bluetooth audio, which is still just voodoo. You pair your headphones, maybe they connect, maybe they don't, maybe they show up in Pulse and not Pipewire, maybe they play audio but only in HSP mode, which sounds like a tin can in a tunnel. I had an issue where I connected Bluetooth headphones once, and they worked perfectly. No issue at all. Literally no issue. Until I repaired them, and then they sounded like they're inside of a tin can. And this happened every time, consistently. I have no idea why. And the only solution that worked was deleting the pairing profile, repairing them, then they were fine. Until I repaired them again. So I had to manually pair them every single time if I wanted the audio to work. Or I just plug in a wire, and that works way better, more consistently. Don't have to do with Bluetooth then. Maybe they work until you reboot. Then you have to delete and repair the device. Basically my issue, or restart Bluetooth D, or kill restart Wire Plumber, or re-enable the Bluetooth audio module manually with a script you copied from Stack Overflow. Even when it works, the latency is inconsistent. Volume levels reset, the connection drops mid-sentence, or it switches to HSP randomly and destroys your microphone. And this is with Bluers, the Linux Bluetooth stack that's been around for years, included in every distro, and still doesn't work. There are wrappers, there are helpers, there are dbus APIs and agent scripts. None of them are consistent, some of them are accessible, and none of them feel reliable. It feels like Bluetooth support on Linux is one flaky daemon away from collapse at all times, and it's been that way for over a decade. I think it's been that way for a bit longer than that. You call this a stack. That's not a stack. This is a stack. A stack implies layers, order, a single interface at each point. This is a tangled mess of everything ever built for Linux audio, still being required right now because no one can kill anything off without breaking something else. You want to play sound? You need Pulsar, because it's the actual driver, it's the thing in the kernel. Pipewire, because it's the new standard. Pulse emulation, because most apps still use Pulse. Ulsa plugins, because some things bypass Pipewire, jack shims because a few pro audio tools never moved on, and config files for all of it, if they even exist. This isn't backward compatibility, this is a graveyard, and we're all just camping in it. And the real cost of sound that doesn't work. Linux audio doesn't just fail, it wastes your time, it gaslights you, it makes you doubt your hardware, your config, your kernel, and yourself, because you know it should work. It works on other machines. It worked yesterday. It worked after 3 reboots. It works if you reset Pulse. It works until it doesn't. And when it breaks, doesn't explain why, doesn't log useful errors, doesn't surface diagnostics, it doesn't give you tools, it just stops. And if you're a screen reader, it stops talking. And for a blind user, that means the computer is gone. There's no GUI fallback, there's no error window, there's no log viewer, there's just silence. Again, at least if there's an error window, even if you don't have the ability to read it, you can OCR it with your phone and rely on your phone's screen reader tools and get something from that. You shouldn't need a specialist to hear your system. It shouldn't be this way. You shouldn't need to install 3 compatibility layers, patch a UDEV rule, reboot twice, pray, and then maybe get working sound. You shouldn't need to be an audio systems engineer just to watch a video or hear a login prompt. You shouldn't have to file a bug just to use your speakers. You shouldn't have to script volume restoration, restart services by hand, and know the difference between ULSA, A-Play, PW-Play, and PA-Play. But here we are, until someone tears this down and rebuilds it for real accessibility, it's going to get worse. So as I said, I've got the author coming on the podcast in a couple of weeks. I've already recorded the episode, but it'll be out in a couple of weeks. And it was a very fun episode. We didn't touch on as much as we probably should have, but there was a lot of general things talked about, and we are probably going to do another one. That's the plan. So when that happens, I think you guys will enjoy it. Be sure to go check out the podcast channel. That is Tech Over Tea. And when there is a part 3, part 4, part 5, I will be here to cover them, because accessibility is one of those things I really do enjoy talking about, and I wish more people actually gave it attention. But what do you think? So let me know your thoughts down below. Do you rely on any of this tooling, whether it be sound-based stuff or visual-based stuff or even like language-based stuff? Is accessibility not using the alphabet and using something that is maybe a right to left language is still something part of the accessibility category? But let me know your thoughts down below. So if you liked the video, go like the video. If you really liked the video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon, subscribe to the Pay, linked in the description down below. That's going to be it for me, and your sound is broken now.